Russian officials have started arriving in Alaska ahead of a high-stakes meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. The US president is optimistic about a deal over the war in Ukraine, but Kyiv has been excluded from this summit. The meeting will take place at a US base in a matter of hours. North America correspondent Cayman Gok reports from Anchorage.
A show of support in Ukraine's colours ahead of a US-Russia summit.
We need to stand with Ukraine!
Vladimir Putin will touch down on land that once belonged to the Russian Empire for his one-on-one with Donald Trump.
I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me. And I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out, whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly.
The self-described deal-maker-in-chief has put the odds of failure at
25%.
But Trump won't reveal his hand ahead of the talks, which he says could lead to a follow-up summit.
The more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself.
But with Ukraine cut out of these talks, Vladimir Zelensky was welcomed to Downing Street instead. Meanwhile, Moscow is already heaping praise on Donald Trump.
Energetic and sincere efforts to stop the hostilities, stop the crisis, and reach agreements.
The International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin in 2023, and many protesters here say he's not welcome on Alaskan soil. But the Russian president won't be arrested because the United States is not part of the ICC, and Donald Trump wants him here.
The president of the United States invited a war criminal to our country, to our state.
Putin gets any land, he wins.
Ukraine will get peace when Zelensky gets the support he needs.
A meeting without Ukraine that could determine the future of its people. Cayman Gok, ABC News, Anchorage, Alaska.
Here's America's editor John Lyons from Anchorage with his take.
Donald Trump says he'll know within minutes of walking into the room whether Vladimir Putin is serious about ending the war in Ukraine. This will be a very small meeting, just Trump, Putin and translators. No room for anyone else, particularly Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, who Putin did not want to be present. Recently, Donald Trump's tried to lower expectations. At first, he was hopeful for a ceasefire. He would have been the man who ended this war. That's unlikely at this meeting. President Trump has changed his definition of success for this meeting from a ceasefire to convincing Putin to meet the Ukrainian leader at a follow-up summit. Mr. Trump says it would be good to have key European leaders at that meeting and that he would happily play host. If that second meeting happens, then there's a real chance of peace.
Well, let's bring in Europe correspondent Elias Kluwer now from Independence Square in Kyiv. Elias, what outcome would Ukrainians like to see from tonight's US-Russia meeting?
Good evening, Nakari. Well, many Ukrainians are hoping for no outcome, and that's because any deal that Donald Trump does with Vladimir Putin is likely to involve the concession of land, territory that Ukrainians have been fighting and dying for 3.5 years. And even with the White House talking about potential land swaps, Ukraine now occupies but a slither of Russian territory. So there really isn't any land to exchange. And then there's the issue of the Constitution. The borders are enshrined, so any change to them would have to go to a parliamentary vote. I've been talking to Ukrainians who say they're tired, they're fatigued, they're desperate for all this war to end, and they hope the summit can bring that about. But they're also concerned about what will happen when Donald Trump meets with Vladimir Putin to discuss terms to end the war, especially considering Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky doesn't have a seat at the table. Nakari?
Elias Kluwer in Kyiv, thank you.